overcome your limiting beliefs, I refer to that as your inner voice, which is stopping you to take up an action to something that you'd really like to do. If you'd like to learn on how do we overcome our limiting beliefs, this is exactly what we're going to be talking about in this very episode today. This is Dr. GopikaKumar, your communication and mindset coach. Let's get started with this right away. So we're talking about here limiting beliefs, and I'm going to be talking about two very important strategies, as I refer to them as techniques, on how we can handle these limiting beliefs which constantly continue to pull us back at all times. Now let's first understand before we get down to those techniques so that you're really able to stay with me till the end of this video, that what are limiting beliefs and how are they really able to control us so much. Now, so I'm going to use up certain metaphors for us to be able to better understand this entire aspect here. Now, imagine this, that there is, a flowing river and there is a dam. Now, what happens? It's going to completely stop the entire flow of the river, making sure that it's pushing it back, right? Or let's imagine another notion of it. Anything which stops something from taking its potential-based action, and that's something that we're referring to it as limiting belief. Now, have you seen ever, when you visit a zoo or, otherwise, a huge elephant, which is like such a huge, big creature most of the time, and many times people tie its one leg to a small little rope? Now, I often wonder, and this has been a very interesting fable as well, why is it that the elephant, being such a huge creature, he can easily be able to break out from that for himself? Why is he not being able to do that? Tell me. Isn't that an aspect of his limiting belief? Because that's how, in his childhood, he's been conditioned that he might not be able to break out from that tie because he's been tied up to that rope ever since. And now his mind has been conditioned that this is his potential. This is how he'll be able to expand himself. And this is all that he really, really does. But that's a limiting belief, because truly, if you ask me, he can break out from that tie as well. Or, you could choose an example where I'm looking at it as you're all ready to shine for yourself. But then there are dark clouds, right? And they're completely covering the potential of you as a sun to be able to shine brightly onto all aspects that you can, and you have all the potential, right? What is the limiting belief here? Of course, it is what we're referring to as the metaphor, which is the dark clouds, or it is the elephant who's tied to that rope, or it could be that dam which is stopping the flow of a river, is where we're able to understand that those aspects which is stopping in the entire flow of the movement is where we need to introduce that how do we overcome this limiting beliefs. So let's get into this aspect which you've been really wanting to hear, that then Gopika, how do I overcome these limiting beliefs for myself? Let's talk about that. So the first aspect here that we can do here is, which is anything which I call as physical, okay? So a movement, and that's my first important area to overcome your limiting beliefs. So you're feeling stuck. You're feeling that you are not having the potential. You do not have the capacity to take care of it. To change that mindset, because now you're in a fixed mindset, to change that mindset, the first strategy is to make a movement physically. And I actually am referring to it as an exercise. And it could be your own movement of an exercise. It could be a walk. It could be a yoga. It could be your gymming. It could be Pilates, aerobics, whatever that you like. It has to be an act of movement. But why, Gopika? How do you think that's going to really help me to come out of my limiting beliefs? It's about cutting down the monotony of feeling stuck, of feeling that that is not my potential. Because whenever we exercise, we're always challenging ourselves, isn't it? We're challenging ourselves that if you're doing a treadmill, let me try and do this for at least about a 10-minute more. If you're trying to pick up some weights, let me try and do it a little more. If you're running a marathon, let me try and do that a little more. So every time you're doing a form of an exercise, we do that as a part of a challenge because we enjoy it. And that's where when you challenge yourself, you overcome. that notion which has gotten stuck into our mind, which is of a limiting belief, and it really helps in creating an elevated version of our self-esteem thereby as well, right? So the second aspect that we can talk about here is the mental movement. So we have just spoken about the physical movement, right? Now in the mental movement, what we can do here is being able to create that movement through which we can break through the shackles of my limiting beliefs thereby. Now how can we take care of that? Now any kind of mental movement, which means meditation, which is extremely strong in bringing in the clarity and overcoming that state of inhibition and getting intimidated. That's the first aspect, which I call as being able to meditate. That's one form of very strong movement. The second aspect, which is to read a book. Now that's something that you can easily do to make sure that we are shifting the energy which is getting stifled and it is limiting your own potential. When we're being able to do that, to read a book or to being able to listen to an audiobook, then also we're creating a movement and we're changing the energy from a limiting belief to something much more empowering for ourselves thereby as well. And of course, when you're talking about a mental movement, we can also create affirmations. And I have spoken about affirmations in many other videos as well, which means creating a movement whereby you are saying that I am and I will and I am going to create that future for myself, regardless of what I or what people or what anybody else thinks about me. Regardless of the fact that how much ever you may think that you may not have the experience, but you're still putting down those affirmations to make sure that you're creating a movement mentally. So mentally you create a movement through affirmations, through book, through being able to practice meditation, and physically being able to create a movement through any form of exercise that you can refer to make sure that we can really, come out of this zone where we are feeling stuck and we are feeling doomed into that this is my potential, this is my capacity, and this is what I'm really meant to do. Always remember the example that I've used up, that you have all the potential like that one big huge elephant, and if you're feeling tied up to a rope, it's your time to be able to break through the shackles right away, right? If you've been able to relate to this video, please make sure that you're being able to leave your comments with us. We are going to love to hear back those comments and suggestions from you on other themes and topics that you'd like to hear back from me as well. We continue to share many such videos. This is Dr. Gopika Kumar signing off. Subscribe to the channel right away.